Oh, thank you, Alan. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, whether it's your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're joining us from. The topic today is tech trends in member education. My name is Matt Dunphy. I am a lead consultant in learning and development with a company called Get Savvy. Congratulations if you're joining us again after having attended one of our other webinars. Today we'll focus on our 2025 research study into AI tech trends and the future of member education, drawing out some key themes and actually giving you some direct advice about how you can implement some activities next year that will respond to these trends, particularly if you're looking at budget planning at the moment. So I will be joined today by my colleague, Alan Reid. Alan, do you want to say a quick hello and introduction?
Good morning, everybody. Alan Reid. I've been working in learning in the membership world since before there were LMSs around, and really looking forward to today's session and talking about what's new and what exciting changes are happening in the membership world of education.
Fantastic. So before we get started, a couple of items of housekeeping. And we will be recording this session and sharing a copy afterwards. So if you're like me and you furiously take notes, please don't worry. Any detail on screen you'll be able to look at again when you see the recording. And please do ask questions. I know it's a lot of content from us up front, but we will have a Q&A section towards the end of the webinar. Please do post questions in the chat box and we will respond. And two things that you get as well as your participation today, you get a free copy of our research study after joining the webinar. And also you get a 50% discount to our own course focused on technology change projects for business people or for non-project managers. It's a really good discount. You'll see a demo of the course later. Really encourage you to avail of that after the session. I'll hand over to Alan and just give you a little bit more information about who Get Savvy are and some of our recent case studies. Alan.
Great, thank you. So really briefly, we work with membership organizations to deliver learning and development projects. We have different models for different sizes of projects. So the key thing for us is it's all very transparent, is based on an affordable model. We have a large team, including a lot of our team based in India, which, by the way, is where you find the biggest pool of learning and development specialists on the planet. We're 100% platform independent, so we work across a whole series of different LMS platforms. We've really condensed it down for today's webinar to go fast, but we essentially do three main things with our membership body clients. Sometimes we provide the LMS itself. That could be to salvage a project that hasn't gone as planned for an organization, or standing up a new platform entirely for an organization. And that includes integrating it to the CRM, integrating it to the website, e-commerce platform, etc. And again, transparent fixed costs on doing those things. Another thing that we're going to talk about a bit later is content digitization. We do an awful lot of that. And that can range from people saying, oh, here's a huge pile of white papers and PDFs and PowerPoints, and we'd like those to be self-paced, exciting digital learning, all of the way through to more creative and interactive scenario-based learning that really brings things to life with human avatars and videos and so on. And then finally, we do an awful lot of strategy projects where helping organizations work out what they need to do next, how much money they need, etc. Just a couple of recent projects and ongoing projects. Here's one, for example, the Royal Town Planning Institute, a large organization of coming up to 30,000 members, and a large part of their remit is educating and helping their membership professionalize. So their primary challenge was that they had outdated and disconnected systems, not the best relationship with their partners, and it had all become a little bit of a bottleneck. They weren't able to keep up with member expectations. So the first thing we did is to work with them to understand exactly what it is they were hoping to achieve, a little bit of clarification about what modern L&D can involve, what the new tools that are available can help you with, and what reasonable goals and aspirations were. And then finally, we worked with our TPI to set them on their path to a whole new way of working with board approval, funding, and clarity across the organization on what modern learning and development development looks like, and with a new learning and development partner and supplier to work with. So that's been one really exciting project that's still going on. Another one is this fantastic organization, I have to say, which is doing amazing work to service and support a much neglected section of our society. So the British Menopause Society provide education, often to professionals in the NHS and other clinical professionals, about the special needs and requirements of people going through menopause. And of course, they provide information to members of the public as well. So the starting point for BMS is that they essentially required a review of all systems and how it could integrate to provide the best learning experience for their thousands of stakeholders. And of course, the usual questions are: how much money do I need? What's reasonable to aim for? And how much work and risk is there? And what can we do to get the best outcomes? So with that, we've worked with their board and management team to agree and help answer those questions, set a clear roadmap forward and a clear program of change. And the current position is that is an ongoing project where they are going to be transforming the way that they provide learning and development to all of their stakeholders in a way that ties into their organizational goals. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Matt, if I may.
Yes, and just thank you, Alan. That was a whistle-stop tour of who we are, what we do, how we can help you, and some of our recent client case studies. What you see on screen is the many learning technologies that we, as a broad team, a network of experts, can support you with. So you probably see Moodle there and Satara, probably quite common technologies, but there are, of course, many others that we can support you with if that is your need. Talking about the agenda then, we are obviously focusing on the 2025 research study. Again, if you have attended the webinar before, today's focus is coming back to the key trends in our introduction. So the main things we identified when we discussed the study with various member organizations. And then we'll focus on AI. It is a hot topic right now. There's lots of debate about how we move our awareness into adoption and action. So we'll cover the key themes there next. We'll then talk about how you can get started, particularly if you are budget planning or looking at next year right now. And we have some recommendations for what to do with your colleagues and as an organization to actually respond to these trends. We have a couple of demos for you. One of our content digitization approach. One of the things Alan's already mentioned, we know a lot of organizations need to digitize quickly and in a way that's economical. And then we'll show you our own LMS. Again, great if you've seen it before. Today's focus really will be back to the AI features that we've used in our course and actually discussing how easy and economical it is to implement those. And then we will definitely get to your questions at the end. So please do put them into chat. So this introduction, the research study, as a recap for anyone who may have joined us before, or if this is new, we talked to over 100 leaders in the membership organization space. This was through a set of structured questions in surveys and also interviews. So we did this earlier this year. So the insights are still very new and current. And certainly the focus was on broad trends in the sector, the future of member education, and people's emerging understanding of AI adoption. So I'll talk through the 6 key themes very quickly, and then we'll actually explore AI in more detail. So first, we heard from people about their position with their current LMS. As you can see on screen, over half of the people we spoke to are simply not satisfied right now. They don't believe they're getting enough out of their LMS. And it's a very, very small percentage there, just over 10%, as you can see, who are actually happy, who are saying we feel we are effectively supported in our educational needs through our systems right now. Kind of compounding this, over half of the people we spoke to said they needed to change or improve both their LMS technology and their content, potentially accelerating and augmenting the amount of content they deliver. As you see there, it may account for some of you in the sector, broadly happy with your content down at 28%, just still knowing the underlying tech is poor. So we have services to support you with that. And of course, there are others in the sector who are really focusing on brilliant tech and content improvement. So high percentages there next are sort of really beginning to understand how closely positive digital learning is linking to member engagement, satisfaction, and retention. So many of you will know this, but I think since the pandemic, we are seeing that strategic link much more strongly. And then looking at the sort of final three key trends, the first one being so a large proportion of the people we are speaking to are starting to truly understand hybrid learning. So it's not just seeing the virtual classroom as a replacement of face-to-face interaction. It's actually saying, how can we consider ourselves as perhaps a pure e-learning organization? A lot of what we do can be self-paced. People can just do it themselves, or when we're interacting, we can blend both virtual learning environments and strong face-to-face contact. So we're seeing a lot of that shift, certainly this year. The last two trends are focused on AI in general. We will focus on this stats very closely. You know, although 80% of the organizations we spoke to have a high awareness of AI, they're having lots of debate and discussion. We're not yet seeing that tipping point into action. It's only 20% of organizations, when we spoke to them, are actually exploring with AI tools at the moment. And that's not just overall, that's also in the area of AI for learning. And then finally, this might be a barrier or something that many of you are challenged with right now. We are seeing a paucity of AI governance policy controls and frameworks in the sector. Again, this is something we can help you with, or indeed, we just understand that people want to get that safety net in place before they go to safe experimentation with AI and its toolkit. So that's the six key themes. I'm going to talk about a couple of others. Let me come back to hybrid learning. I think what we're seeing at the moment in conversations with our clients is not just, okay, we have virtual Zoom and WebEx or Teams webinars now. It's actually, how can we create true blended learning? You know, how can we understand the high value and the high volume learning we can do online versus where do we need to invest and actually use tools and preserve face-to-face interactions. You know, we all know we want to be face-to-face learning, but where do we inject that into our overall L&D strategy in future years? So there's a real kind of balance of blending both online and face-to-face that we see a lot of. The secondary theme here, as you can see on the screen, is around monetizing content. So this can be a bit of a moot topic for some organizations. We've got a very liberal view on it. You know, there'll be lots you want to offer for free with your members as part of their core benefits, even if you are mainly an educational organization. We do know that you will have high impact, high quality content for people's careers that may actually be worth considering monetizing. And also you will talk to non-members. You'll have a lot of visitors to your website who may join a webinar, an event, or actually want on-demand online content. So considering those things at this moment of budgeting is really crucial. And then finally, Alan always speaks very well on this topic. You know, we do understand that the L&D voice gets lost at the senior management team table. You know, there's so many core technology concerns, a lot of legacy tech still out there. You know, it's how can you actually broker your opinion and your position on getting your budget secured and getting your plans agreed to next year and in future years. Alan, just briefly, thinking about these trends we're hearing in the sector right now, would you add any others or would you comment on these ones on screen?
Yes, definitely. And just a brief comment to everyone. If any of this through the webinar resonates with your own project challenges or things that you're being asked to think about, please do drop a question in the Q&A, and we love to talk about that as part of the webinar. But yes, I'm seeing a lot of movement in all of these areas on live projects that we're doing. The hybrid learning thing, what we're hearing across the piece is that members are expecting more now from their membership bodies. Our research shows that members value learning more than any other membership asset. So it really does tie back into the member value proposition. So and allowing those members to take advantage of the learning when they're not on premise and they can't get to you is a really big deal. So we're hearing a lot of organizations now and working with organizations who feel like they have to either offer purely digitized learning more than they ever have done in the past, self-paced, the Netflix generation, all of that, or at least offer people a way of taking part in the annual conference, etc., in a hybrid way. Monetizing is increasingly the case. Pretty much every project we do now has an e-commerce element to the LMS platform, and as you say, Matt, blending that member value with added value is a key topic, and we advise organizations a lot on what they can reasonably expect from their ROI on that. And then the very final bit. It's really timely. We're working with organizations now that are struggling to get their board to understand how important it is to spend properly on learning and development projects. CRM projects and web projects get all of the glory and often get all of the funding. I think we've got a really good model now for proving the value of L&D projects, relating it to membership income, relating it to renewals and retention, and making sure that boards understand how important it is to keep up with the expectations in order to maintain their overall organizational targets. So there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on.
Brilliant, Alan. Thank you for adding colour to that. I know you're out talking to a lot of our clients right now. So, in summary about the key trends, let's just say this. We know you as L&D leaders or people in member education have a lot to deal with, sometimes or very often without the luxury of being able to increase your budgets dramatically or your team size. So really, it is about balance for us and economizing and actually highlighting where the value is for your organization and indeed for your members. So we'll deepen the understanding of the research study now. And as I say, you will get a chance to read this in detail after the session by focusing on AI and some of the key themes we found in that space. Firstly, a key kind of statistic that we found, as I said already, and I think we were somewhat alarmed, but, set to support this, 80% are having conversations now about AI. They are debating, its merits, its values, its risks, but very few organizations are being able to get to AI action and AI adoption in a real sense. And I think some of that is also about the fact that there's still a lot of legacy infrastructure out there. How do we add AI, particularly AI for learning, to it when we still got those challenges? Alan, briefly, just in terms of this kind of whopping stat we found in the study, any view from yourself?
It does resonate. Everyone and every marketing message everyone's getting is saying you must take advantage of AI, and if you don't do AI, you'll die. So there's a lot of interest in it, and of course, there's a recognition that all of your colleagues and staff around the organization are using AI. It's whether you've declared it or not, whether you've got policies around it or not. You really don't have a choice about whether people are using it. One positive thing I will say for anyone embarking on an L&D project, AI has just transformed the capability of membership organizations to be able to create cost effectively in a way that they just could not afford a year or two ago. Really exciting, rich, complex content, and to add that, so getting away from the very flat content that was within the budget before. Now we can have content for membership organizations that's the scenario-driven, interactive video, animations, and all of it done at a fraction of the cost that was available before.
Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, there's lots of advantages here if we can get over these barriers internally. So just talk a little bit an overview about kind of what the AI section of our study covers, or indeed what we found. Talking broadly, we did find a mixture of enthusiasm and caution. I probably would say that was related to AI adoption overall. Thinking about AI for learning, we certainly heard from people that there is more, as Alan says, more focus on this. It's in the mainstream for users in their life and their lifestyles right now. So it is actually, how do we bring it into organizations, and actually how do we adopt it for learning and inside our LMS? Probably what you might be finding, particularly if you're a larger organization, is people are going back to talk about digital transformation programs now. And there was a bit of a lull there for a while. And within that, AI adoption is a massive driver. You might be hearing about cybersecurity and sustainability, but AI always comes up when people are planning their digital transformations now. And just to say, the section of the study talks about people's attitudes, talks about general readiness of organizations in the sector for AI, and obviously it talks about that classic topic of capacity and capability right now. So, as a reassurance, this is one of those moments where you will remember you get the webinar recording. I'm not going to go through all of these stats in detail, but I will tell you the story of our findings. So, in terms of what I said a moment ago, it really is 50-50. 50% of the people we spoke to were quite optimistic and were exploring AI in a high level way, and 50% were very skeptical about it within the sector when we ran the study. Now, that leads on to things that, as you'd imagine, how ill-equipped people are to start this journey, given other challenges or just the need to understand it. And certainly then you will see that in the sector, there's probably more of a focus than in the private sector in different ways about the ethical concerns around AI or the reputational risks. I'll give you a trade union example. If you're a trade union out there campaigning to protect jobs, and AI might be a risk around that for certain companies, to then adopt it heavily internally is certainly something you need to consider quite carefully. Continuing on the left there, how do we adopt? Well, there's a lot of understanding that we can adopt AI to automate admin. And that is true for the learning space, but a couple of other examples we would share and we'll elaborate in a moment is, really personalizing learner journeys and pathways is something that AI is strongly supporting, giving people different nudges and options within their learner experience. It's much easier now via AI than it's ever been. And just on the bottom there, looking at the support required, I really like this one because actually the sector is saying we need to talk to each other. We need sector-wide guidance. There is a recognition that expert support and consultancy may play a part here. It's kind of what we saw around the time of GDPR, but there is the need to continue the conversation, but definitely tip over into strong action and adoption. And as you see, that statistic appears again here. If we trust it fully, only about 20% of us are getting to action, to delivery, to implementations of technologies that include AI. And again, you're seeing these couple of stats here that obviously plays out into people's sense of their own maturity, which is quite low around AI right now, their readiness in any real sense to adopt. And certainly their deep understanding. We know with all learning, it begins with understanding. We are seeing a lot of people who have gaps in knowledge or a detailed sense of what this is and how we can harness and use it. And as we've mentioned and we'll keep mentioning, again, like GDPR, there is a sense if we put the governance in place, some policy, and that can be done quite rapidly with support. And actually, we talk to our IT teams or suppliers around frameworks, and safe use of AI, then our opportunities are boundless. We can actually experiment and implement with much more reassurance. So that's kind of painting the picture of the AI section of the study. You will certainly get it to take a look at. But what are the bottom lines here? Well, we are behind the curve. I don't think we should be embarrassed by that. I think it is connected to core technology progress and understanding where we can bring in AI use cases. And then in the learning space, we are certainly seeing the awareness there. It's the same issue. You might have to solve your LMS problem or actually generate more content, make it more digitized and dynamic before you can appreciate and start to add in some of the AI features that are really, available to use everywhere right now. And then just to give you a sense of that, we'll share a couple of examples of really where AI is proving very powerful. This is both in the course that we've created. We have real life experience of adding some of these features and what we're seeing with our clients who are beginning to explore this. So I talked about learner journeys there, and pathways. This is actually becoming much more fluid using AI. So being able to suggest a junction or a pathway to a learner as they are progressing, versus just having a linear course that people follow to the end. We're certainly seeing some dynamism in how you can add that into an LMS and your content now. Again, some of that links to progress assessment. We all know, and we've all created Check Your Understanding quizzes. They usually appear at very structured points in a journey. AI is really helping us be more flexible about where they appear and exactly what questions we ask. And sometimes that can be based on people's behaviors or responses to quizzes previously. On the right hand side here, we've got adjusting content. We all know, probably we and everybody is looking at ChatGPT to give us a hand with content. We all hope that we are actually editing then and refining and personalizing for our organization. But certainly there are things like suggested topics, suggested future courses that AI just helps you promote to the user, to the learner, as they're inside your LMS, as they're inside courses. That's really powerful stuff. On the right hand side here, learner analytics is getting much better, and particularly predicting outcomes. If someone really isn't engaging or is actually struggling a lot with a course, you might be able to get an alert for more support for them, or overall just predicting what your pass rates might be for a particular cohort of a course if you run your education that way. And then you will see a little bit of this in our demo. People are really looking at agentic AI, AI tutors, and avatars. And there's a brilliant company called Synthesia. There are other companies, but Synthesia were pioneers, as were we as actual end users of avatar technology, AI tutors. It's powerful. There's probably a choice in there about whether you go in that direction or not, but it can be very expensive to video your team educating others. Avatars is a real economical option in the market now. So, just a mini pause to say that's the summary of the AI section, and that's something you can read in more detail. And even if you've got questions now or later about AI adoption for learning, please do get in touch with us. But what I'll do now is just a quick look at some recommendations. These are in our research study, and they're quite classic Get Savvy. These are the things we do recommend even in core technology projects. So let's take a quick look at those. But before I do, to frame this, we do hope this is support for you if you're a budget holder. If you're looking at your cost center right now and you need to make some changes or you need to blend in some things, we know the demand is there to do exciting things as well as the constraints to keep it all within your budget and affordable. So please do view these recommendations as immediate if you are in that position. Or indeed, if you're someone who's just joining this webinar who has influence over a budget holder. So our recommendations, there are 5. Do think about your business case for investment. Alan mentioned this up front. We do know the conversation can get lost when people need a CRM, they need to change their website, they need to talk about AI more broadly. It really is about doing the groundwork, both in terms of your understanding of what investment budget you require, what your options are. I won't insult anyone's intelligence, but doing research and getting scientific about the amount of money you're going to need is crucial. And then we always promote the value of stakeholder engagement. Talking to people about how digital learning is driving member engagement. It might be the jewel in the crown of your member benefits. So why not? Let's invest in it appropriately. Some of that can go to your team size as well if you really do need to ask for extra headcount in challenging times. And the next one then is about digital roadmap for learning. I'll give you a couple of simple scenarios. You may not have an LMS. You may be doing certain things with events, masterclasses, PDF content that is sufficient, or you're at the threshold where you need an LMS. We do see that. So even if you don't have an LMS right now, you will have some sense of what you need to do in future. More likely, you will want to either create an LMS for the organization or indeed change one. And that's where we see a lot of roadmaps built on creating or changing an LMS and then enhancing it and really driving your content strategy within your new technology. So as we see, we do that flip of people's insights saying, it's not great at the minute. Well, if you change it, you will be able to grow what you're doing much more effectively. So we can support with roadmaps, but even if you are creating this yourself, it's really about looking at your 3-year plan and what needs to come first, next, and then thereafter. We will talk and show you a little demo in a moment around content development. Generally, what we find is it's pretty organic and it's a little ad hoc. People have basic good content. It seems to be sufficing. They want to make that leap over into more dynamic, immersive content. Some of you will want to explore with AI features now. So it is about understanding how you design and develop content. And actually, we've got another webinar coming up later this month, which will give you key stages for developing your content and digitizing. So next then, this is all about AI. So as we've said, I won't labor the point, but if you haven't got AI governance in place, you haven't got policies, you just feel nobody is using this sort of in a structured way in the organization, come and talk to us or talk to your leaders about setting these things up. It will help with what follows. If you're in progress here or you've managed to do that, congratulations. We do feel that this then leads into your ability to implement more technology and to practice more in the learning setting. And then finally, building long-term capability. We know this relates both to technical capability, but of course it relates to our people. We are all learners in the L&D space ourselves. So, we really instruct you to think about what trainings, upskilling you need for your people around AI for learning, modern LMS. And we do want you to think about kind of how that extends to your organization as well as your members, and how really you can build strength internally, even if you're still using external support consultancy in particular areas. So there's kind of a 5-step plan there of how you can actually get started and really move some of this implementation of these trends into action next year and exploring more AI for learning. So that's a lot of insights. That's a lot from our research study. I think, Alan, we're going to share this section. We're going to talk next about a mini demo of our content levels. And then I think you're going to talk about some kind of pricing options and then our own LMS.
Sure. So, great. Thank you very much, Matt. And just while Matt's jumping into the different content variations, just remember, everybody, please do drop any questions that are coming up about your own project into the Q&A. We've had some really great ones that we've responded to already, so keep them coming. So what we're showing here is essentially 3 different content sophistication levels, if you like. So this is a mini bit of education about what is digital eye strain. So level 1 content we have here. This used to be the state of the art up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So there will be a little bit of text, some bullet points, and a bit of an image and a back forth button. So essentially PowerPoint and PDF level, but digitized and put on the learning management platform. And still today, that I'm afraid represents the great majority of digital content that most membership organizations are offering to their members. And their members are saying, well, this is a bit flat and a bit dull. And it used to be that it was very expensive to do the next lot of things. But actually, the next lot of things have really plummeted in cost now. So if we go to level 2 content, you can see here, it's all things we've seen before. We're not trying to say any of this is revelatory, but it's essentially what you then get is more interaction. Your learner is able to interact with the content. They can get feedback on what they're doing. They're essentially able to drill down and explore it like a child with the building blocks. So their brain is working in a different way, and they're more interested in the content. They're going to stay with it longer. So that was something that people would do as an expensive thing in their level 1 content and only have a little bit of this stuff in there as well. Now then we get to things like level 3 content. This is where we get into, this is just one example, but it's where we're starting to get into video. We're starting to get into animations. We're starting to get into real interaction with the content. So here in this example, we're allowing the learner to look around a workplace environment and see where the potential areas for eye strain are and what could be done about it. So they can go, what about my chair? And they click onto that. And then there's a little bit of information about it. So it's bringing it to life. It's relating it to their own environment. And they're in a little bit of a video game thing here, just without the guns and the knives. And then they basically go round the room doing these different elements. Now, this could be as I say, an avatar that's guiding them through it, a human being who's guiding them through it. It could be an animation. It could be all sorts of things appearing and moving as they go around the room. And all of our research shows that's what keeps members coming back, and they feel like they've absorbed it at the end. Very finally, if we do the level 3 in a bit, this is something everyone's done before, of course. If you haven't done check your knowledge and check your understanding, then you're not really playing. But these days, these things have become vastly more sophisticated. The feedback is contextual, and it will tell you where you're going wrong. And of course, you can get the AI to create your exam questions, your check your knowledge questions, hundreds of them, in a fraction of the time it used to. And then your human activity becomes to check them and curate them and make sure you're happy with them. So different levels of content. We are seeing a lot more level 2 and an awful lot more level 3 content coming through now. Then if we jump into a course itself, a learning management system and course itself, so then what I'll do is I'll just jump into an actual course, and then we'll go from there. So what I'll do, this is a course that we developed, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, is for people who are doing a technology project in their own organization, and they don't want to have a lot of stress, and they don't want to not know what they're doing. So if we jump it,
Alan,
yes, please,
just
Matt.
to check, I think you can share this, or would you like me to? I know there's a couple of sections around content pricing as well that we could cover if you want to do that.
Sure. No, I'm happy to share from here if that's okay, Matt.
Fantastic.
Okay. So if I just jump into the course, and imagine now you're the learner and you're the project manager. So if I jump in, and then I'll just log in as a learner on our learning platform, and sign in. It's taking me straight to my personal dashboard here for this particular course, which is managing technology change projects and in your own organization, basically. I can see that I've already completed this course, and here are all of my modules. So getting started, how to develop a business case. There's a 40-minute module on what you really must get right and what you mustn't get wrong. And then carrying on through there, I can see that there are modules for every part of my project. How do I do testing? How do I manage the go live? How do I ensure the benefits, etc.? Here's one on supplier selection. So I'll jump into there. It takes me through, okay, here's your roadmap. We're going to go through every part of your project. And then here's what you expect to learn as you go through. So I'm going to go through supplier selection. Here are my learning outcomes from supplier selection and what I can expect to get out of that. It's starting to introduce my trainers here. Here is Jack, who's going to take me through some content. It then introduces me to my other stakeholders. The operations director is going to want something out of me as the project manager. The finance director is going to want something out of me. So essentially, they will talk to me and guide me through, in my role playing as the project manager, what I must deliver to those people. So what we then do is we run things in a scenario-based way. So this is something that's become more expensive, more sophisticated and much, much less expensive to do. So we create a scenario of how to best run a fair and legal selection process in your vendor selection. And then we guide people through. So let's go through here.
Actually, just checking. Alan, have we lost you? Or are you,
No,
still?
I'm still here.
Perfect. Fantastic. Yep. Still engaged in the learning.
So let me just forward through that. So I think so you can see the idea is essentially we have the talking avatars, and by the way, you choose the accent and you choose the actor, etc. And we get feedback that says, "Love all of that. I'm not sure about this or that accent. Fantastic. That's all good." And it makes it much more human, and people understand content a lot more if they're guided through by what is essentially, as far as the learner is concerned, a human being. So if we go through that. And then we carry on through. Then what we have is personal recommendations guided by the AI. So as you're learning and going through the content, the AI is learning about you and what you need. So it will then give you personalized recommendations for next bits of content that you can go through. Uh, then, of course, the checking your understanding is much more colorful and easier than it ever has been before. So when I do go through, I can interact with it, drag things, put the content where I want it, and then I get personalized feedback on anything that I put in. Whoops, I got that wrong, but it tells me where I got it wrong. I'll then drag these in here to say what my guess is on this, checking my understanding. Whoops, I've got that wrong as well. Don't know my own course. And then from there, it tells me I haven't passed this particular module, tells me where I've gone wrong, and allows me to retake. In this case, what I'll do is I'll jump from there straight to the final assessment, since I've already taken this course and got my qualification. And then I can quickly show a whole series of different ways that we can engage with people, assess them, score them. And then we had to do a lot because this is an accredited course with an actual qualification and certificate. So there's 50 questions in this particular course. When I go through there, in this case, it's then allowed me to pass. Fantastic. I can go and download my certificate, which I can see in this case has got a digital verification link and accreditation from the Institute of Leadership and the International Association for Project Managers. So that's dragging in some modern features and AI-driven features that simply were out of the budget of most membership organizations until a few years ago. So Matt, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to just do a quick poll, and if you don't mind, I will. I'll ask you to just to comment on the results of the poll, if that's okay. So if I
Yes.
just launch the poll, hold on one second.
And I think while you're doing that, Alan, so yeah, just to recap on what you've seen, you do have the discount code. It's 50% off on the actual course itself. And that's actually, I think it's 7+ hours of learning. But even if you're watching the video back, you will see the way Alan's described certain of the AI features in there and just how dynamic the content is, with the assurance that that was much lower cost than it would have been, say, 5 years ago, given the advances in this technology. Great,
Great.
Alan.
Can you see the poll on the screen in front of you?
Yeah, very good. So on screen, we've got what's the next big L&D step for you in your organization? So which of the following areas would represent your next big step forward in learning tech and AI adoption? So there are several options on screen. I will call them out just as you're considering them. So maybe for you, it's getting an LMS or it's replacing your current LMS. You're at that kind of fundamental foundational stage of your roadmap right now. Um, so I've already seen the results, so I'll call them back in a moment. Maybe it's digitizing more of your content. The other themes we had was looking at blended and hybrid learning, monetizing, setting up AI governance and controls, creating policies for AI, or indeed exploring the opening use cases for AI in learning. Alan, I'll talk back to you about the results. I think we've got some really interesting things here. And we actually do see, which is not a surprise, that over 2/3 of you are looking at just replacing core LMS tech right now. Please remember you can speak to us if you want some free advice on that. We also have many services in that space. There are also other technology providers out there. Another popular set of topics really is about content and getting to grips with hybrid learning. Probably, I would also even add monetizing. So great, what's brilliant to see in the poll is that you are inside some of these trends and exploring them as well. If you've seen in our content demo, you may be thinking, how do we make it more dynamic? How do we digitize more? Indeed, then, so that we could potentially monetize it. We're producing higher value content that might actually be something we can offer as a paid for service. Brilliant. Alan, any final comments on kind of what we've seen in the poll study there?
Very interesting that over 2/3 are thinking of getting an LMS or replacing their current LMS. I wonder how much, if we do a bit more of a deep dive, how much of that relates to people not being happy with their current LMS provision. And we are seeing a lot of that in the marketplace with misaligned expectations. Great, great. Well, I hope this kind of webinar will help people avoid that situation.
Yes, exactly. And I think Alan's absolutely right. You know, you may be in your opening stages of creating an LMS or getting one, and we are talking to many people who feel like their LMS doesn't fit for their organization. So, just to look at some of the key summary or top tips we've shared today. So first on screen there, please don't delay. If you are a budget holder or you can influence one, we've positioned this particular topic in October for a reason. Most people in the sector are on a January to December planning cycle. So do think about some of these trends, including, as the poll states, the ones you are most focused on, and bake them into your plan for next year. Do your research about how much investment you need to ask for and actually be bold and make that step forward versus status quo. We also would probably say, particularly around AI, activate your colleagues. If it is a lot of debate and discussion right now, be the person that is saying, how do we move this to action? Your IT leaders, or even if you're using a third party IT service, will be strong in this space and they will possibly be implementing or waiting to implement technologies. So do be the person who is leading that conversation towards action now. If anything is lagging, and particularly some of you may have this in place, but it seems less of a focus in the poll results. Be the person or create the coalition around AI governance frameworks and policies. As we've seen through GDPR and the movement to the cloud, and we talk about these things because we know they matter in the sector. We know people feel safer if controls and frameworks are in place to then go on and actually implement more and experiment more. Last two from us here. And definitely do examine this. Again, the poll was sort of suggesting that people aren't necessarily in this space right now, or a majority aren't. But go to your teams, go to membership, go to other educational teams in the organization and say, do we know about features for AI for learning? Which ones would we use? Would we use avatars? Would we not? How are we thinking about what we could maybe start to explore and then grow later? And then finally, then, I'm genuinely enthused by this. The sector tends to respond to change by talking to each other. So come and talk to us, come and talk to your technology suppliers that you have at the moment. They do offer expert advice, as do we, but please make sure you're networking. Talk to other people, particularly anyone in your kind of vertical, if you like, anyone who's doing something very similar to you. What stage of progress are they at? And what are their thoughts about actually activating AI and adding in AI for learning or digitizing their own content? So that's a summary of the webinar and a summary of our top tips. What's good today is we've got plenty of time, I think, for questions and wraps. So, Alan, what are you seeing in the chat? Have we got anything there? We got things that people have asked in advance.
Absolutely, loads of really good questions, and some of that have come through ahead of the webinar. Some have already been answered, but please do drop any last minute Q&A in. So here's a question that came before the webinar. As a membership organization, we have really limited budget. Are we best spending our money on our platform or on our content? So I've got some comments on that, Matt. I'd invite your
Yeah,
comments as
sure.
well. So our advice is always, and this is really backed up by the research study that shows that over 80% of members value content above anything else. So if you imagine you're a Netflix user and Netflix only put one movie on a month and didn't change anything else, you're not going to go back very often. You're not going to keep going back to that platform. So our advice is very much spend money on your content. Make sure there's always something new there for members to take benefit from. You can do a lot of that in house. Get yourself equipped with the right tools, etc. But also, it's now much more cost effective than it's ever been to work in a hybrid model with an agency, us or someone else, to do more sophisticated content. But spend your money there. And then my final comment on that would be we're finding that with open source platforms, Moodle and others, you're not then having to spend that huge sum of money on licensing every year, which again you can use for content and use for your own team. Matt, did you want to add anything to that?
Only kind of with my project manager, change manager hat on, I find I've worked in other areas of technology and the implementation timeline is much longer. and arguably more arduous. I think the LMS implementation timeline is shorter and in many ways in certain projects I've been involved in easier. So I think if you can think, what do I spend on my technology and how long do we need to focus on getting it in place? Naturally, you can probably move quite quickly to prioritizing your content, what you spend there. And the big word for me is how you develop your learning strategy. But getting to the strategic thinking and the things you do overall versus having to be embedded in a tech change project for months and months and months.
Great, thank you. Another one relating to money. So we've got a question saying, we're really struggling to prove the value of learning and development to our board. And I'm not sure they understand. So, Matt, I'll pose this one to you. How can an organization make the case for investment? How can they make the case for a return on investment as well when it comes to spending on learning and development projects?
Yes, so I think I'll probably give a couple of kind of prerequisites. Some organizations we talk to in the sector, are core educational organizations. So if that challenge is happening in that type of organization, there's definitely some fundamental work to do to educate and have this debate with colleagues at the leadership level. If learning is part of what you do, but you have stronger membership benefits elsewhere, I certainly recognize that, yeah, that conversation is generally trickier. So in terms of the advice, I mean, I am a pure return on investment or as someone who focuses on non-financial benefits. So I think doing some scientific work on, can we offer paid for content? Or if we already do that, what income do we genuinely generate, through that? Or what do we state, in our strategy is basically the core benefits of our educational offering. So you can talk about the money and you can talk about the softer side of benefits, how this supports the engagement we're doing. The other key thing, which I think should always come up, particularly if you are a strong professional membership body with CPD or with that focus, is you are doing what you do to drive people's careers, to give them development opportunities, to give them advancement, to give them credentials and reputation. So any way you can talk to your leadership about saying, these are the tangible things we are offering for individuals' professional careers right now, or these are the challenges in our way of actually promoting and engaging our people on using these services. The more you can do that, the better, because it's proving the right point. We want people to have higher salaries, we want people to have promotions in the sector, or in their industry, and we want people to enjoy their learning with this, with that high impact outcome. So focus on career development.
Absolutely. So great. And then we've got a question as well, which is when it comes to getting the board to understand your project. This one's from Matt Smith. The value is clear, so the board do understand the value of L&D, but they want to know about impact. How can we show the impact of learning opportunities we provide when there are a wide number of variables at play? So, Matt, thanks for the question. We've done a lot of organizational research where we're trying to work out what's the best use of your money to achieve the most impact with your learners or with your membership as a whole and non-members too. And we found a few things. So we've got various industry stats and knowledge from lots of projects. But the easiest channel you have, you can talk to us about that, and we're happy to share that. But the easiest channel you have is to talk to your own members, and this is relatively it's impactful to your board. If you're quoting things from your members and you've done a round table with them and asking, okay, can you take advantage of this? Is this worth the money to you? Is this a benefit to you? Do you ever come to our actual in-person events, or can you only take advantage of digital stuff that's available, from anywhere? Is the content valuable to you in the middle of your career where you are, or is it only stuff that's valuable to new career joiners? And use that information to then make the case to the board. And of course, you're also educating yourself with that, because they will be saying some things that surprise you, I'm sure. Matt, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think again, I know this can be tricky, particularly finding the right data, but it does bring us, Matt, into the territory of measurement and evaluation. of again, we do this for learning, but I think, how do we highlight the key storytelling and the key insights? So I'll always quote the Kirkpatrick model, if you know that, or you can discover that online. It gives you some solid evaluation metrics to actually locate and to report on, and then to tell the story. So at a deep level of learning for our membership, we are actually seeing impact. We are seeing outcomes. Feedback's obviously important, both in terms of testimonials and the feedback, that you're receiving, hopefully, for your courses. So where people are highlighting the impact it's had on their careers, they're highlighting the steps forward they've made, or the progression they've made, or how valuable one of your qualifications has been. I think that's powerful at the level of leadership. And I think what Alan's saying as well is, don't be afraid to go to those harder metrics around return on investment. Not to be political, but you might say something like there's a scenario where you go, generally our events are not that well engaged with. Our educational events are really popular. You prove the value of education very, very quickly without
Absolutely.
hopefully setting up too much destructive competition internally.
And then we've got a great question from Michelle Henley, which is, what's your view on learning material being endorsed or accredited? External organizations could charge a fortune to offer this. Could an association set its own standard rather than paying just to use a level or a kite mark, etc.? So, Michelle, that's a fantastic question. We are big fans of having courses endorsed and accredited. We recognize we've worked with lots of organizations to help them through that process. Our own courses are accredited by various organizations like the Institute of Leadership we just saw, International Association for Project Management. It's a lot of work, took 6 months of proving that it was going to add to their member value proposition as well. But in terms of impact to potential learners and impact to people who've gone through the course, it's enormous and hard to overstate. What we found a lot of the time is that those organizations can be open to non-monetary partnerships as well. It doesn't just have to be, oh, give us a bit of the money for every learner that goes through your course, or you have to pay us, this amount of money every year. There can be other arrangements, other quid pro quo ways of working. And actually, there are lots of organizations that will do endorsement and accreditation essentially for free because it's part of their mission to improve learning in the world in this topic. But we're big fans of it because it is so powerful when it comes to having the take up of your course really take off and really be popular within your audience. Matt, comments on that, if any?
Yeah, I'll respond simply there. I think we're all probably agreed, or we could be, that we don't want to chase the dragon too much. As Alan says, an accreditation is incredibly important and valuable. It kind of just is. But you want to be doing the other things, that just making sure your education has got a good core to it. Generally, you are clear on your outcomes, you are clear on your impacts, as Matt suggested. You've got testimonials, your people are talking about the learning you do. So the accreditation, if you go after it, it's not just a bonus; it's a real endorsement. But don't make that your sole end goal. Would be my advice.
Absolutely. So I think we'll wrap on questions there, just so that we don't overrun. But actually, I'll just make one comment that we did a board presentation recently where we were making the case for investment in learning and development, and we put a statement in front of the board, which is, and we were using the royal we because we're working closely with our client, the membership body, and I said, let me test this statement with you. Our job is to help our members make more money, amongst other things of professionalization and education. But our job is to help them make more money in their careers, or if it's a B2B organization, in their business, so that they go for that promotion. They've got evidence of their learning. They've got evidence of their CPD. And if we're able to help them make more money, then they'll stay members. Then they'll continue to engage with our content. Sometimes framing things that way really helps with the ROI business case, and really helps people justify and understand why learning and development is such an important part of membership. And then, Matt, I think we've just got a moment to wrap up, and then we can thank everybody.
Yes, and I will give myself the note in action and speak with Alan. We've got a couple of pricing tables which describe the content digitization services we deliver and also just the relative cost basis for either open source or licensed LMS. So I'm sure we can get those out to you after the session. But in terms of that recap on our services, we have our own LMS. We can help you create one if that's what you want to do. We have content digitization services. And as you've heard a lot today, we do a lot of strategic work, a lot of consultancy work with organizations as well. And as you see on screen, just to say, you'll get the recording today. You will also be able to avail of that discount code for the course that we've run or one of them if you do or are planning a project and you want to actually do some learning of your own. We will share the research study after today, and I think we can include those pricing tables as well. And please do get in touch. It's what we call a, a no strings attached conversation or consultation. If you want to speak to Alan in the first instance, just about any challenge you're having, please do that. And we have a whole webinar series. We've got two coming up. I'll plug the next one. It's getting the most out of your LMS, and that will be whether you don't have one yet and you want to, get the most out of one you're about to procure, or actually eking some improvement and enhancement out of the one you've got, or indeed replacing an LMS. So a bit of focus on how you can increase value out of a system the next time we meet. So that's probably it from me. A big thank you to everyone who's joined today. And as always, Alan, a pleasure sharing the time with you.
Great, great. Thanks everybody, and hope to see you on the next one. Thank you very much.